I'm Pamela. Standing in the middle of the church hall, surrounded by the stunned faces of my family and neighbors, I felt a calm I'd never known before. The room was filled with the sound of my mother's shrill screams, but I remained silent, my stack of envelopes in hand. It all started 3 weeks ago. I was sitting at my kitchen table, late on a Thursday night, eating reheated soup while reconciling receipts for my clients. I'm a bookkeeper, handling the accounts for a flower shop, a coffee roaster, and a small art gallery in town. The work often follows me home, and this night was no different. My phone lit up on the counter, a text from Aunt Nora. There was no message, just a video file. I assumed it was a forwarded clip, maybe a funny animal video or a reminder for my mother's 65th birthday party coming up. I wiped my hand on a dish towel and tapped the video. The screen filled with a cold blue light, and the sound of laughter filled the room before the picture even sharpened. I recognized every voice. My mother, Helen, with her haughty laugh. My brother, Ryan, loud and boisterous after a few beers. And my sister, Emily, with her high-pitched giggle. The camera was angled across a dinner table I'd sat at countless times. It was the dinner from the week before, the one I'd missed because I was closing out the books for a client. They'd gone ahead without me, as they always did. I turned up the volume. My soup went cold beside me, and I didn't notice. I leaned in when I heard my name. Ryan was standing up, glass in hand, doing an impression of me. "Here's to Pamela," he said. 37, no husband, no kids, just her little numbers. A pathetic failure who's great at adding up everyone else's money. Emily laughed into her wine and said, "Be nice," in that fake kind voice. Then my mother, Helen, at the head of the table, lifted one hand and said, "Oh, leave her alone. She's fine. She should be grateful. At least the money gives her something to feel useful about." The whole table erupted in laughter. I watched Aunt Nora on the edge of the frame. She laughed too, but her eyes dropped to her plate. I sat in my dark kitchen, waiting for the tears, but instead, I felt a cold, quiet determination. I paused the video on the frame where my mother's mouth was open around the word grateful and reached for my ledger. Let me tell you a bit about myself. I've always been good with numbers. I taught myself most of what I know about bookkeeping and then took night classes at the local community college while working during the day. I've earned every client by being accurate to the penny. People trust me because numbers don't have emotions, and I've learned to keep mine in check, at least on paper. But I have a weakness. I've always been the one to carry the weight. 6 years ago, my father passed away suddenly. He left behind the family home and a mortgage he'd been struggling with. My mother hadn't worked in decades, Ryan's credit was a mess, and Emily had just lost her job. The bank looked at us and found only one person whose name could make the math work: mine. I sat down with a loan officer and bought the house. My name was on the deed, the mortgage, and every important document. I did it so my mother could stay in the home she'd lived in for decades, and I never once thought about the long-term implications. Everyone in the family knew I handled the house. They'd say it casually at parties, like I'd just made a simple arrangement. But in 6 years, not one of them ever asked whose name was on the title. They preferred the story where Helen had held everything together through tough times on her own. After that, it was a slippery slope. Ryan's car loan when his business went under. Emily's rent when she couldn't find a new job. My niece and nephew's tuition at the private school. And my mother's endless bills: the electricity, the medication, the property taxes. Every month, like clockwork, I'd sit at my table and transfer the money. I never made a big deal out of it, never mentioned it at dinner. I just did it, like watering a plant, not realizing the plant had thorns. I tried to talk about it a few times. About 3 years in, I asked Ryan if he could start contributing to the kids' tuition now that he was back on his feet. My mother called me before I'd even finished my coffee and cut me off. "Your brother is still struggling, Pamela. You're the strong one. Don't be selfish." So, I dropped it. Another time, I suggested we all sit down and discuss the family finances. I scheduled a meeting, but I was the only one who showed up. I kept paying because I knew the alternative would hurt real people. I told myself that they loved me, that their gratitude was just buried deep down. But that video shattered that illusion. I realized that for 6 years, I'd been the one holding everything together, and they thought I should be grateful for the privilege. The next day, I noticed that the first of the month, when the next round of payments was due, fell on the same day as my mother's birthday party. I was paying for the hall, the caterer, everything. It was as if the universe was giving me a sign. I decided to do an audit. I opened a fresh workbook and created a tab for each of them: Ryan, Emily, the school, the utilities, and my mother. I went back 6 years, statement by statement, and logged every single transfer. I didn't exaggerate or editorialize, I just recorded the truth. I also drove out to Aunt Nora's. I told her I was returning a pie dish. She made coffee, and we sat in her kitchen. Eventually, she cracked. "You saw it," she said. I didn't answer, but my silence spoke volumes. She admitted that she'd seen my name after sending the video but didn't take it back. She said she should have stopped them years ago but was afraid of being the next one laughed at. I thanked her for the coffee. She'd given me the truth, but I knew I couldn't rely on her. I ran a small test. I paid Emily's rent 3 days late on purpose. Within an hour, my mother called. "What's going on with you, Pamela?" Emily's landlord called. "You've been so distant lately. Ever since you got busy with your clients, you think you're too good for us." I held the phone away from my ear and realized that 6 years of perfect, on-time payments had bought me nothing but the expectation to keep doing it. That night, I went to my file cabinet and found the closing packet from when I bought the house. I spread it out on the kitchen table and saw my name on every important page. The house that everyone called Mom's house was legally mine. I'd been paying for the roof over their heads while they laughed at me. The next morning, I finally added up the total in the workbook. The number was staggering, but what really got to me was the time. 6 years of missed dates, canceled vacations, all because of their needs. I cried for a few minutes, then wiped my face and knew what I had to do. I made a plan. First, I'd sign the deed of the house back to my mother and set up the mortgage for her to assume. Second, all voluntary payments would stop on the first. Third, I'd hand each of them an envelope with a complete record of what I'd paid and when the payments would end. Fourth, and most importantly, I wouldn't argue. I'd say my piece and walk away. I called a friend, a CPA I trust, and ran my plan by her. Then I sat down with a real estate attorney in town. She confirmed that the house was mine to deed as I wished, but deeding it didn't erase the mortgage. My mother would have to qualify to assume it or refinance it herself. As for the other payments, they were gifts that I could stop at any time. The day before the party, I went to the hall to check on the setup. Ryan was there, hanging a banner and already drunk at 2 p.m. He saw me and said to a group of cousins, "Be careful. Don't upset the ATM. She's been moody lately." The cousins laughed nervously. Emily was arranging flowers and cut me off when I tried to talk about a billing issue with the caterer. "Nobody wants to hear about invoices at a party, Pamela. Read the room." My mother breezed past me, focused on Emily's dress, as if I was invisible. But then, my young cousin, Lily, who was 20 and home from college, caught my eye. She came out to the porch with me and asked, "Aunt Pamela, are you okay? They shouldn't talk to you like that." It was the first time in 6 years that someone in the family had asked me how I was, not what I could do for them. It almost made me change my mind, but then I realized that the kindest thing I could do for her was to show her that it's okay to set boundaries. The night before the party, I sat at my kitchen table and put the envelopes together. I slid the new deed and the mortgage information into my mother's envelope, along with a ledger of all the money I'd paid over the years. I did the same for Ryan and Emily, including the dates when the payments would stop. I sealed the envelopes and wrote their names in my steady bookkeeper's hand. The next day, the church hall was full. My mother was holding court near the cake, telling the story of how she'd kept the family together after my father passed. When the cake was cut, she tapped her glass and said, "I think my daughter Pamela wants to say a few words. She's the one who put all this together." I stood up, calm as ever. I held the stack of envelopes and said, "Thank you all for coming to celebrate my mother. 65 years is a remarkable milestone." I then picked up the first envelope and walked over to my mother. "Mom, this is the deed to the house. It's been in my name for 6 years since I bought it to keep you from losing it. Tonight, I'm signing it back to you, along with the mortgage that I've paid for 6 years. The papers inside explain how to assume it." A confused murmur filled the room. I then handed envelopes to Ryan and Emily. Inside these are complete records of all the money I've paid for this family over the past 6 years. Every bill, every transfer, it's all there. My mother erupted. "How dare you do this to me at my own party? You're always so jealous and attention-seeking." Ryan stood up, angry, and Emily started to cry. But I remained calm. I said, "I'm not asking for thanks or an apology. I'm just done paying to be your punchline." An old neighbor near the back said, "The one they called pathetic was the one holding it all up." Lily crossed the floor and stood by my side, taking my hand. I set the last envelope on the table and said, "The payments stop on the 1st. The house is yours now, Mom. I hope it's everything you've been telling everyone it was." I picked up my coat and walked out, with Lily by my side. Outside, the cold air was refreshing. I got in my car and drove home to my small house, where I finally felt free from the expectations of others. The fallout was as I expected. My mother called the bank and learned the true cost of the house. She had to refinance and cut back on her spending. Ryan sold his car, realizing he could have been making the payments himself. Emily moved to a smaller apartment and got a part-time job. Some relatives believed the story that I'd abandoned my family, but those who were at the party knew the truth. I didn't defend myself. I let the ledger speak for itself. Life got better. I took on 2 new clients and had more time for myself. I took a weekend off and went to the beach without a single spreadsheet. About a month after the party, I got a text from Aunt Nora. "You did the right thing." I'm sorry I didn't. I thanked her but knew that it wasn't enough to repair the years of hurt. The only relationship I kept was with Lily. She calls me just to talk, and sometimes she comes over, and we cook dinner together. It's the kind of relationship I always wanted with my family, where both sides give and take. I learned that generosity isn't a one-way street. The day you balance the account, you find out who truly values you. This is my story, 6 years of silence, 4 envelopes, and a birthday that finally told the truth.